awesome. How are you doing today?
I am honestly tired today. Just starting to get out again
Yeah.
and trying to live life like we did before the pandemic, before the social isolation. And I'm finding that my body is not used to it. So
Yeah, we
I'm
were
quite
we were
tired this
just
week.
talking about this, no? Because I was just to dinner last night and it wasn't even getting late. and
Right.
we're feeling it. We're not used to be out and about, leaving the house. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
little tired too today. So but we're two of us, but we still can have a fun well, the topic is might not be so fun, but we can still have a good conversation.
Well, yeah. I mean, everything I talk about has to do with things that we're struggling with in life.
Yeah.
But to me, the golden thread is that what we talk about is how to overcome those things
Yeah,
and how to live a life that is more peaceful and full of more meaning and purpose and joy. So, yeah,
exactly.
when we talk about some topics that are a little bit harder, I always feel like there's a positive spin to it. And hopefully, everybody thinks it's a little uplifting.
Yeah, I think so too. It's like what I'm trying to do is like my whole podcast, like clutter is but per se little bit of a heavy topic, no? So, but what
Yeah.
I'm trying to do is, yeah, make it a lighter, make it lighter, make it feel lighter, find a lighter side. I feel too that if we can look at it a little bit from a distance and from a more lighter side, it's easier to overcome it and or even going and tackling it, you know? So I think we'll
Yeah,
do good.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And it's
yeah,
always, for me, it's always about healing.
yeah.
I feel like because I lived a traumatized life as a child, my entire adult life has been dedicated to healing. And
Mm-hmm.
healing is a hard process, but it's also a beautiful and positive process.
Mm-hmm.
And it is uplifting when we look at it as, wow, we're healing. And
Mm-hmm.
when we heal, we feel good.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of my ethic about how we go about things here at Peaceful Living Wellness.
Yeah. And that's why we're so aligned, because as you may remember, I always say like decluttering is self-love. And I feel like
Yes.
going to self-love or making sure self-love is at the forefront. That's also healing, because we're actually looking after ourselves, you know, in all kinds of areas of our life.
It's the start
So
of healing. Self love is the start of healing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So we want to talk about the post-pandemic depressions and anxieties that some of us, or probably most of us, just in various capacities feel like, no? And
Yeah.
you as an extrovert, or you even told me you're an extreme extrovert, so you
Mhm.
probably have other issues and anxieties and stuff around the pandemic and having been in lockdown and everything. Than me, I'm more like an extreme introvert, so like I have no problem sitting at home all the time. I thought, and then I learned that after 18 months of basically only sitting at home alone, that oh, I do actually enjoy going out. So let's
Right.
talk a little bit about it, because that is a dear topic for you right now, no? The depression and anxiety that comes out of this pandemic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, in my coaching practice, I have women who are coming to me who are struggling with this post social isolation, post extreme anxiety time. And like myself, we don't understand necessarily on the surface why we are feeling depressed and anxious, why we are not feeling good, because we're coming out from under social isolation. So, being the former academic, being the trained researcher that I am, I have taken the time to dive into what's going on, not only for myself and my own healing, but for healing my clients clients, and hopefully through these conversations I'm having, healing other people out there. So one of the first things I found in my research is that our levels worldwide of depression and anxiety are sky high.
Mm-hmm.
And the ramifications of that are very severe. So we're seeing many more people who are turning to drugs and alcohol. We are seeing many more people who are reverting to drugs and alcohol. We see people who are struggling with their work, in their parenting. They're struggling with suicidal ideation. And these are very, very life-threatening situations that we as a world community need to address.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like so much attention is being paid right now to, oh, the Delta variant and who's being vaccinated and who's not.
Mm-hmm.
And just like when we first started to go into social isolation, I feel like, at least here in the United States, and I pay attention to European news as well, that there's not enough attention being paid to mental health. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that through these conversations, we can talk about, okay, it's okay if you are feeling this way. It is normal. And let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about how to start with self-love,
Mm-hmm.
to start that healing process so
Mm-hmm.
that you can heal out of the trauma that we have been through with this pandemic.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I actually was someone from the beginning who said that we're not looking at the results or the effects of this isolation. Like already last year, I said we're only focusing on the virus, but we're not like what damage it's gonna do to our mental health, to the safety of children or spouses who are living in these situations where they're all of a sudden 24/7 crammed together, and maybe before it was already not a good situation and now it's even worse. And so yeah, and now we thought we're coming out of it, and it's not being addressed still. It's crazy. And yeah, so I feel like it's very important. So um for for the listeners and the watchers, we have it both, no? So how do you start, even because I don't think we're really taught how to deal with these emotions, and we're all a little bit left alone. Where I come from, Switzerland, I feel, especially when I grew up, I'm not so much sure how it is now. It probably gets better too, but it's still a stigma on it that if you need
Yes.
mental health, if you need to go to a psychiatrist or psychologist or counselor or whatever, you don't say that out loud because that makes you feel like a certain way. So, or not feel like people feel about you a certain way because there's a stigma to it.
Being
So
judged.
yeah, so talk about this a little bit. How can we even start? Because it could be really hard to go and reach out for help because of that, and because we feel like we should just be able to handle it on our own.
For me, the place to start is to remember that we are not alone. That's why I was very particular about saying that I am struggling with this as well,
Mm-hmm.
because I want people to know that even though I'm a trained mental health practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
I am struggling with this.
Mm-hmm.
So you are not alone if you are struggling with anxiety coming out from this pandemic. The other thing I want people to really understand is that if you come out like a bull out of the gates at a rodeo, sorry, I don't know where that analogy came from.
From up here.
I haven't been to a rodeo in 30 years, but okay. Anyway, if you come out and you're like, okay, I'm going to be busy, busy, busy again, that actually is avoidance behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you were a person who was, not you, Connie, because you and I have talked enough, I know that you are not this person, but to our audience, if you were a person who was busy, busy, busy all of the time before the social isolation, you are more likely to do that again after. And what that does is it puts you in a place of mental avoidance and emotional avoidance.
Mm.
Now, that's all well and good because it might feel good in the moment.
Yeah.
But again, back to that research, what we know happens when we emotionally avoid our feelings is they will come back to us,
Mm-hmm.
often in the form of more severe mental health challenges, depression, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
but also in the form of severe physical health challenges.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of stress that is put on the physical body from bypassing emotions, from not
Mm-hmm.
processing emotions, is immense. That is why
Mm-hmm.
heart disease is still the number one death sentence in the world, even in spite of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Your
Mm-hmm.
stressors from the pandemic, if you do not address them, if you do not process them, are going to kill you
Mm-hmm.
through heart
Mm-hmm.
disease.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to really stress, you can tell from my tone of voice, you can tell from the words I'm using, that this is of utmost importance because it is a matter of your life and death. It is a matter of your life and happiness. So I want people to be aware of if they are starting to go again, and they're just watching Netflix, binging Netflix. This is a great avoidance tactic. I am guilty of it myself.
Mm-hmm.
To avoid their feelings, they're doing damage to themselves. And so I want them to say, okay, I'm feeling this way. Other people are feeling this way. Now I'm going to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the big issues, at least that I had, and I had to actually do something about that, is that growing up, I didn't learn how to deal with emotions. Like, I don't know whether you did, but I didn't. I sure didn't learn it in school. Nobody tells you how to deal with your emotions in school. You're more or less told to push them down and buckle up and push through and whatever else language you got or heard
Yeah.
around it. My parents didn't know how to do that either, so I didn't learn. So I had no idea. I'm Miss Queen of avoiding. I still catch myself. We can avoid in all kinds of ways. My coach calls it buffering, which is also the same thing. You're just
Yeah.
basically doing something meaningless to numb yourself so you don't have to feel what you're feeling, not just because you don't want to feel it, but also I feel like because we don't know what to do with it. It's like, and so I personally had to actually learn what to do instead of avoiding or buffering. And so I was wondering whether you have some tips what we can do in the moment. And we can start, like, I always am a proponent of starting small, so it doesn't have to be this huge anxiety attack where we try to practice this. Then we can start with anything, because anytime you notice that, it's also how clutter starts to accumulate because we're avoiding. No, so anytime we notice that we're starting to binge Netflix, or we're starting to eat mindlessly, or we're starting
Yeah.
possibly to drink, we can just notice and see, okay, what feeling am I trying to run away from, But now, instead of running away from it, what are your tips what we could do?
So in my coaching program, we always start with what I call breaking busy. And this comes from not only my own life experience, but 20 years of coaching. So if we are busy, we don't have time to feel. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to learn to slow down. We have to learn to take that time. And as you and I were discussing before we got on this call, we have to pay attention to our bodies, that if we go out and we're busy and we end up tired, we need to allow ourselves to rest. But I think the answer to your question is a little bit more nuanced to that, is a little bit more nuanced as well, because what you need to do as an individual depends on what you are feeling as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you are struggling with anxiety and depression, I do not I do not recommend doing this on your own. I recommend finding somebody to help you with what tools you need. And that can be different for different people. For example, for people who are not very in tune with their bodies, that they don't understand how their emotions and their bodies work together. I love to have them go and see a somatic therapist or a somatic coach, somebody who can help them to really feel where that depression ends up in their body, where that anxiety is in their body.
Mm-hmm.
If it's somebody who is up in their head all the time and it's all about the thoughts are going, I suggest they see somebody like you, Connie, who works with brain clutter, because that's where they have to start. They have to start with that brain clutter. If there's somebody who they're feeling overwhelmed and lost, and they're in a place where they're like, I just don't know where I am, what I'm doing anymore. I'm not sure I have any purpose anymore. Then they come and see me. And I help them dig into not only why they don't feel that they have these things, but how to fill their life with things that are meaningful to them, with things that bring them purpose, and how to have that self-love, to bring it around full circle, instead of, and these are my clients, taking care of everybody else. My
Mm-hmm.
clients are high achieving moms. So they're always taking care of everybody else. They forget to take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I help them go through that process so that they can be in self-love. If they can't get out of their heads, first, they have to go see you to help them get that clutter out of their heads so that they can feel that self-love and start to heal.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. So if somebody is really like has depression and severe anxiety, then they need to maybe even go to some professionals, not just to me, but like, or to some coach. They really need maybe therapy or counseling or
Therapist,
whatever.
yeah.
But I do feel that you can start practicing in smaller or in less severe situations. You can start, because like that's what I had to do when I heard what you can do with these feelings, which is actually just feeling them and accepting that they're here for now, and then they often go away because I let them be here, and then they go away. And I'm not talking about depression or anxiety, but I'm talking about maybe feeling stressed or being frazzled or whatever, or feeling tired, when we're just accepting this, and like you said, taking care of ourselves, listening in, and then giving it the space. It often, because we're giving it the space and because we're slowing down, it often goes away. And again, I'm saying it's not depression and anxiety that goes away. It's
Yeah.
these pre feelings that stack up that then become the overwhelm and everything.
So there's a really wonderful technique that can be used to process any emotion, but particularly the emotions that arise from everyday stressors. And that is to be aware of the story you're telling yourself.
exactly. Yeah.
Our neurology will process an emotion in 90 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
which is amazing when you think about it. Our
Yeah.
brain can process that. And not just our brain, but our endocrine system, our hormones can process that in 90 seconds. But what we as humans do is we tell ourselves a story about whatever that stressor is. And so we keep re-upping
Mm-hmm.
the anxiety. We keep re-upping the emotion. And that 90 seconds repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats.
Mm-hmm.
So if we
Mm-hmm.
can be aware of the story and say, okay, the story I'm telling myself about this is,
Mm-hmm.
and then let that story go, get into our body and feel the emotion that's going along with it, breathe deeply to engage the relaxation effect, we can let that everyday stressor, that little stressor, I don't even want to call it a little stressor, because it's still, for a lot of people, big stressors, but we
Yeah.
can let that stressor dissipate in that 90-second period of time.
Exactly.
And even if you're going, okay, 90 seconds is up and I'm still feeling this,
Yeah.
rinse, repeat, right?
Yes.
Rinse, repeat.
That's exactly what I wanted to say, and you could just explain it so much more beautiful than me. But that's exactly what I was talking about. If we can just let it be there and feel it, it will dissipate. And I heard that about the 90 seconds as well. And we're sabotaging that process by the story we're telling ourselves. That's why I always say, like, mental clutter leads to emotional clutter, because with the story we tell ourselves, we push the emotions down, and we push it down, and we push it down. And we can just think about what happens if with a pressure cooker, if the pressure gets
Right.
too big, then it becomes dangerous now. So we really and it's also, it helps to not come into this overwhelm if you're just processing these smaller stressors. Like, we want to not minimize it, but before
Yeah.
it becomes too overwhelming, or before it becomes a huge black cloud, we can allow our body to feel those, we can take the pressure off of it a little bit. And that is, again, self-love, and that is taking care of yourself. And we can,
That's a
and
great
it doesn't
analogy.
need hours and hours and hours of our day. We can just do this. And the busy, high achieving women can do that too in
Yep.
between, because 90 seconds is really not a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things that my clients do from the get-go, I mean, coaching is a process, you know this,
Mm-hmm.
and because I'm a former professor, my coaching is the curriculum. It just works better that way. And again, 20 years, my clients really appreciate it. But one of the first things they do is they build breaks into their day.
Mm-hmm.
They build breaks to just sit and breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're movement breaks, but it has to be a break.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a lot of my clients, because especially since we've been working at home, they have animals at home. They go and play with their dog.
Yeah.
They walk the dog. Maybe they walk the cat. I know people who walk cats these days.
Just cuddle the freaking cat, and
Yeah,
it helps
yeah.
too.
I know that you go out and spend time with your horses,
Yeah.
and actually, horses are one of the most amazing healing animals out there. I
Mm-hmm.
personally have been volunteering at a horse rescue, and working with the horses on the weekends has helped me to get back into my body through working with them and their bodies. And some of these horses, because they're rescued, have some real physical issues,
Yeah. And their own
but
trauma.
their own trauma, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so working together to heal our trauma has been magical for me. And I
Yeah.
really want to, we talked about what are some of the easy things you can do. Well, maybe not with horses for everybody,
Yeah.
but animals in general.
Yeah.
Animals in general can be incredible stress reducers,
And
whether it's a dog, a
nature.
cat, or bunny.
Yeah. And nature. Like, just find, like, you can go and take how do they call it? They have a fancy word for it. I think a tree bath or something. What it basically is, you just,
I don't
yeah,
know what that is.
a tree bath. You just go into the woods, and you kind of take a bath, like, in brackets, a bath in their energy, in their
Yeah.
peacefulness, in their, because this is not woo. There's enough scientists, just
Oh,
talking
yeah.
to me, to your
Physics.
scientists, that we know that trees have also a connection. So they're connected with their roots, they're talking with each other. It's an energy field. That's why we feel good in the woods. So giving yourself the gift to, maybe you can't do it every day if you don't have anything close by, but you can make a point and go on a weekend and go and take a tree bath or a wood bath or whatever you want to call it, and just be there in nature, and try to be still, and again try to just feel what you're feeling and soaking it in. That
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The healing effects of nature are so profound. Trees, absolutely. The ocean. I live near
Mm-hmm.
the ocean. Well, you live not too far from the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very healing. Um, Getting outside, and in yoga, we call this grounding. Taking your shoes off and feeling the earth beneath your
Mm-hmm.
feet.
Yeah.
Very, very healing. Even if you live in a city, so many cities now have urban gardens.
Mm-hmm.
So many cities have carved out parks. Go to that place
Mm-hmm.
that you can take your shoes off and feel the grass, feel the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
People used to tease me because of my politics. You're such a tree hugger. And I'm like, yeah, I love to hug trees, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's what you were talking about. Hugging trees, you receive from that tree.
Yeah.
So
That,
absolutely.
that's one of the problems. I feel like that a lot in society. It's kind of like this tree hugging is bad, even though this would be really looking after your mental health, your emotional health. That is what it's doing. But that's what I meant with this stigma too, is like, yeah, this joking about people who love trees. I don't agree with it. It's very, very vital. And I'm very lucky. I live on acreage, so I have my own trees. So every morning I take the dog and I go up there. And that is actually, that's where I get the energy for the day, in the
I love
trees.
it.
And yeah, the ocean is another good place, especially if you can go somewhere where it's not packed, like, and not because of the pandemic or corona, but just where there's not too many people and too busyness, but too
Amen.
busy, but like more somewhere where you can just enjoy nature and the water
Yeah.
and the smells and the sounds and all that. Yeah, yeah,
One of
yeah.
my favorite things to do here in Charleston is go down to there's sea rivers, so they're half freshwater, half
Mm-hmm,
saltwater,
mm-hmm,
um, and there's marshes around them. I like to go down there and go kayaking because when I go kayaking out there, there's dolphins everywhere,
mm-hmm.
and just to not to go and touch the dolphins, not to go and try to kayak over them, but just to be with them and
Yeah,
watch them
yeah.
and the birds. And even the bugs. We have a lot of bugs here.
Yeah.
But even the bugs, hearing them buzzing around me, and I
Hmm.
have my bug spray on so I won't get bitten. But it is it is just an amazing thing to do. But again, if we're busy all the time, if
Exactly.
we're running the kids to soccer and dance and basketball and gymnastics, and we don't take that time for ourselves,
Hmm.
we're not going to heal.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I think we gave our listeners and watchers some ideas what to do. You can start small and but try to get these pauses in every day. That's, I totally feel your feelings. Do you have any last other words you really, really want to get across, that you feel like without saying this it wouldn't be complete?
Yeah, actually, this is one of the most important points for everybody right now, introvert or extrovert.
Hmm.
Social connection scientifically has been found to be the number one thing we can do to reduce our stress.
Hmm.
So I really want to encourage everybody to have social connection. Now, I don't want to get into the controversy of vaccinated, unvaccinated, but do what you need to do to safely be in community with other people. And the screens are wonderful, but they are not the same as
Hmm.
being in a room, being on a beach, not with the crowds, but with people you know, like, and trust,
Hmm. Hmm.
because that is going to be the best thing for you.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I feel like we all noticed that. Thank God we had the screens in the last
Yeah.
18 months. But I
Yep.
think we all felt that the screens are not a replacement for in-person interactions, connections, and meetings. Yeah.
That's absolutely right. And again, this is something that has been borne out by research,
Hmm.
and not just social science research. I'm a social scientist by training, but also by medical endocrinology research, because they're out there testing people's stress hormones.
Hmm.
And so they
Hmm.
now know through stress hormones, they know through brain scanning that social connection versus lack of social connection has a physiological effect on us.
Hmm.
So there's some great hard science behind that as well.
Awesome. So I think we did it. We did a good conversation around this heavy topic. We let people go with some um, hands-on things they can do. Thank you so much, Jen, for coming on and talking with me about this. And now you, as the extrovert, will go and connect with some people you like and trust, and I will do the same.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that, Miss Introvert. Absolutely. And I do want to make sure to stress, if anybody is feeling depressed and anxiety to where it's affecting their daily functioning, please, please reach out for help from a trained expert,
Yeah.
whether that's a therapist, a coach, a spiritual leader. Please do not try to do this on your own.
Yeah.
If you are at a place where depression and anxiety are affecting your daily living, you really do. These other tips are wonderful. Don't not do them. Please reach out to have somebody who's a professional help you with this as well.
Yeah, we have to normalize it. It's like when we feel sick or anything, we go to the doctor to get help with our bodies. We should just have it so normal that if we have issues with our brain or emotions, we're going also to the doctor, just
Absolutely.
to a different one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And thank you, Simone Biles, for setting an example of doing something incredible to protect her mental
Yes.
health and
Yes.
saying, I can't do the Olympics this time. And
Yeah.
she's over there,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
she was hugely courageous in saying, I've got to protect my mental health.
And with more and more people talking about this and more people showing up
Destigmatized.
this way, we will get it where we need it to get so that it becomes more normal. Thank you.
Thanks, Connie.